Hey there, Lucas here from e-commerce team, and in this video I wanted to shoot you a quick tutorial about the flow filter and the trigger filter, what's the difference, what you can use for what, and also go through some questions that you might have. So in the first case, let's start with the actual trigger in and of itself. What is a trigger? A trigger is basically the start of a flow. So for example, in this case, when someone views a product, the trigger the flow gets triggered by this action that someone has done. So for example, it can be a view product, upon a checkout, they got added to a list, they placed an order, whatever the case, there's always some sort of action that has been taken that leads to the flow starting. And then you can have a trigger filter and also a flow filter. Let's start with the flow filter. The flow filter is basically a filter that is applicable throughout the flow. So this means, in this case, checkout started 0 times since starting this flow, placed order 0 times since starting this flow, and has not been in the flow in the last 30 days, which means in the whole flow, someone has not started the checkout since starting this flow. They also placed 0 times an order during this flow. So the flow filter is essentially for the whole flow, not just the trigger, but for the whole flow. Let's say we have 5 emails, and after email 4, someone places an order, which is definitely the goal of a viewed product or a browser domain flow. So in that case, after email 4, it gets stopped. So basically, after someone takes an action of the flow filter, he gets kicked out of the flow at that stage where he is. So in this case, let's say email 4, they placed an order, or they checked out, or in this case has not been in the flow in the last 30 days. That's more of a conditional thing that could also be a trigger filter. So that's the flow filter. It's essentially, let me sum it up again, it's essentially applicable for the whole flow. So whenever someone does one type of this flow filter during the flow, they get kicked out of the flow and basically out of the flow. The trigger filter essentially is something that's just for the trigger. So in that case, what you can do is when someone viewed product, you can, in this case, you can see dimension, you just have value here. So what you can play around with is, for example, hypothetically, you have a big brand with a lot of volume, but you have different, let's say, product prices. So you have a product with something above $200, for example, then you can select that the value equals or does not equal or is at least whatever you want. So let's say here is at least $200, which means in this case, this trigger gets just triggered if this is the case. So if someone views a product where the value is at least $200, then the trigger gets triggered and the flow starts. So that's essentially the filter that you have on the trigger filter. The flow filter is for the whole flow, and it's more so for someone to kick it out, to kick someone out of the flow. The trigger filter is essentially for the starting action. Trigger filter, starting action, flow filter throughout the flow. So what you can do with that is also you can have dedicated triggers based on the value of the product that someone viewed. Or you can have a dedicated trigger filter based on the products that, or the whole checkout they have. So for example, if someone checks out with a total value of $100, you just want to give them 10%. But if someone, checks out with a total value of, let's say, $500, you maybe want to give 15% off. Whatever the case, you can play around with these trigger filters, and based on that, you can have certain stuff laid out. Let me know if that makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section. And that's kind of it with this video. Thank you so much for your time. Take care, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the day.